to believe. The skeptics have a belief system too, and their belief system is something like the power of chance and the power of random processes has the power to do these amazing, miraculous things. Given enough chance, given enough time, but that's a belief system, right? We don't have any evidence of something just miraculously changing by chance, and none of us has ever lived for 1 billion years, so we've never seen any of that. So we can't know that stuff. It's a belief system. So my point is that everything is belief, and that's good news and bad news. It's good news because everybody's facing the same challenge. It's bad news because your belief system might be flawed. Okay? Which brings us to our third point. And the third point is this. We survive by adopting a system of belief or systems of belief. What we have to do in our life is to put together a whole system that is consistent and coherent. God designed your brain to work this way. Your brain is wired, you as a human being are wired to be curious, to be pattern-seeking, and to be passionate for coherence and consistency. What you're trying to do in your whole life is to ask the question of how do these pieces fit together? Someone gets hurt or injured or maybe even dies, and we ask the question, why? How does this piece fit into everything else? And we're looking for consistency. We're looking for explanations. We're looking for a system that everything can be put together to fit in that system. And so, the question I have for you today is, how comfortable are you with your system? How confident are you that your system actually works? I heard the story just yesterday of an aunt that I have who was going on a walk talking to someone. And many of you know that, that in my family, my grandmother-in-law is sick right now in the hospital. And so her daughter, my aunt-in-law, was on a walk with one of her neighbors, and they were talking about some of the tragedies going on in their lives. And my aunt said to her neighbor that she was just trusting God, and she really believed that God was going to take care of the family. And the neighbor said, well, how can you do that? Your family is always so filled with faith. You're always so trusting. And the neighbor said, I want to be that way. That's the whole reason we're doing this series. Because there are many of us who want to be people of faith, who want to believe, but we haven't found the way to actually get there. And I'm going to tell you today that you don't need more logic, and you don't need more evidence. You don't need more people to answer the questions for you. What you need is a twofold thing that I'm going to explain to you. I could only come up with these words. These are the best possible words for it. But what you need, what I need, what we all need when it comes to getting into a good belief system is we need a beautiful epiphany and a paradigm-shifting encounter. I'm going to explain that a little bit, but just briefly, an epiphany is that light bulb moment, the Oprah moment, okay? You're watching Oprah and she says something and you're like, wow. Never thought of it that way. That's an epiphany. Whether it's beautiful or not, I don't know, but it's an epiphany. And you need a paradigm-shifting encounter. You need someone to come into your life to give you information that says, yes, this fits. I'll give you a quick explanation. Example here. What you're seeing here is Ptolemy's view of the entire universe. Ptolemy was a scholar in ancient Egypt, a couple hundred years after Jesus, and he developed an astronomical system of the entire universe. And the way it works is that the Earth is at the center. So here you are, the Earth is at the center, and the moon revolves around the Earth. And Mercury and Venus and the Sun and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and the stars also revolve around the Earth. And the Earth is at the center. Everything revolves around it. But the problem is, if you look at Venus through a telescope, or if you look at Venus just in general, it goes through phases, just like our moon. And so if it's going through phases, then there's got to be something weird. It must be between us and the sun. And so it's got to be on this line connected. And each one of these planets isn't just on the line. They're on something called an epicycle. So they go through this mini circle while they're going all the way around the big circle. And it's this kind of thing. And the only way to explain what you could see in the stars is by doing this kind of thing and saying every planet jiggles like this. Every planet. The sun, everything has this jiggle motion as it just kind of goes through the skies. That was Ptolemy's idea. and it stood for hundreds of years, until this guy named Copernicus came along, and he said, what if we, just for argument, what if we put the sun in the middle? Then everything is explained with simple planets moving around the sun. All we have to do is put the sun in the middle, and all of those little jiggles fade away. We don't need them anymore. We don't need those little wiggles, the things in the planets going in those epicycles. All we need to do is put the sun in the middle. Now, if you compare that, the difference between the two of them, you could say that one of them is more beautiful than the other. Because one involves complexity and confusion. It's like, what is this? And so what happened is Copernicus came along with this idea. And some people got it, some people didn't. But those people who got it said, here's a new paradigm, and it's beautiful. It's simple. I can go with this. I can jump on it. And for a long time, Copernicus's math wasn't as good as Ptolemy's math. And so there were even some astronomers who published articles that said, we don't care which system you use, just so long as you get the answer right. Just so long as you do the math right. That's all we care about. But eventually Copernicus won out, and we found out that, yes, as a matter of fact, he was right. What I'm trying to say to you is that in order for you to have a solid belief system, someone has to give you that beautiful moment. And I believe Jesus will do it for you. I believe Jesus, if he hasn't already done it for you, I believe he will do it for you. And I'm going to prove that to you with the passage from Mark chapter 9. If you have the Bibles we passed out, it's on page 701. And I'm just going to briefly address this. This is the introductory message to this whole series. And so if you know anyone who's struggling with this belief idea, they want to be a person of belief, but they can't really cross that line, bring them next week or the following week, because the rest of this month, that's what we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with these big questions of how do we cross that line into a belief system supported by the Bible. And so we're looking at Mark chapter 9, beginning in verse 14 through 29. I'm going to read the story. It says this, talking about Jesus and Peter, James, and John, the three closest disciples to him. When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. What are you arguing with them about? He asked. A man in the crowd answered, Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not. O unbelieving generation, Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you?